The man whose badge was supposed to protect you became the reason you never made it home. This is what happened to Kara Knott. It was the evening of December 27, 1986. 20-year-old Kara Knott was driving home from her boyfriend's house in Escondido, heading to her parents' place in El Cajon. She was a college student at San Diego State University, smart, cautious, the kind of person who followed the rules. She stopped briefly at a gas station to fill up, then continued south on Interstate 15. As she drove, she noticed a marked California Highway Patrol car behind her, signaling her to pull over. Kara didn't panic. Why would she? This was a police officer. She did exactly what she was taught to do. She pulled over, like any responsible citizen would. The officer's name was Craig Payer, 13 years on the force. A badge, a uniform, a patrol car. Every symbol of safety Kara had ever been taught to trust. She had no way of knowing this stop would be her last. Instead of stopping on the open freeway, Payer directed Kara to exit at Mercy Road, a dead-end, isolated off-ramp, far from traffic, far from witnesses. It wasn't the first time. Over the past 6 months, Payer had pulled over more than 24 women along this same stretch of highway and directed almost all of them to this exact same dark road, even when it meant they had to reverse against freeway traffic just to reach it. With men, his stops lasted minutes. With young women, they stretched past 30 minutes, sometimes closer to 2 hours. Long, personal conversations that had nothing to do with traffic violations. And here's the part that makes this worse. People had already tried to warn the department. A month before Kara's murder, a man named Perry Kurtz called CHP to report Payer's strange behavior at that exact off-ramp. He wasn't the only one. But Payer had a good reputation within the department, and the complaints were dismissed. Nobody connected the pattern. Nobody pulled him off the road. And 3 weeks later, Kara Knott took that same exit. Quick question before we continue. If a police officer pulled you over at night and told you to drive to a dark, isolated road, would you obey? Or would you call 911 first? Let me know in the comments. 3 weeks after those warnings went nowhere, it was Kara's turn to take that exit. When the stop turned personal and she grew uncomfortable, prosecutors say she tried to get away. Payer struck her, wrapped a rope around her neck, and strangled her. Then he carried her body to a nearby bridge and threw her into a ravine 65 feet below. He returned to his patrol car and sped off, trying to build an alibi for the night. Kara never came home. Her family tried searching the freeways themselves that night, but police wouldn't take a missing person report yet. She hadn't been gone long enough. The next day, her abandoned Volkswagen was found near Mercy Road. Her body was discovered shortly after, at the bottom of the ravine. 2 days after the murder, in a moment that still feels unreal, a local news station interviewed Craig Payer, the very man who killed her, for a segment on how women could protect themselves while driving alone. On camera, scratches were visible on his face. He claimed he'd fallen against a fence in the CHP parking lot. Investigators checked. The fence was too tall for that story to hold up. After the broadcast aired, nearly 24 women called the police. Each one told the same story. A CHP officer had pulled them over at that same off-ramp before, some describing conversations that lasted far too long, far too personal. An internal investigation confirmed what the pattern already showed. Most of the women Payer stopped were driving alone, and almost all of them matched Kara's age and general appearance. Piece by piece, the evidence built itself. A gas station attendant remembered seeing Kara that night and remembered a CHP car making a U-turn on the road just after she drove away. Witnesses at another gas station recalled Payer arriving that same night, disheveled, driving in at high speed. A gold-colored fiber found on Kara's dress matched the shoulder patch on Payer's uniform, made from an unusual pigment rather than a standard dye. A rope in his patrol car matched the marks around her neck, according to a forensic dentist who examined it. A drop of blood on one of Kara's boots matched Payer's rare blood type. And his own patrol logbook had been quietly altered. The timeline for that night didn't add up. The first trial ended in a hung jury. 7 jurors believed he was guilty, 5 didn't. It wasn't enough for a conviction, and Payer walked free, at least for a little longer. At the retrial, prosecutors sharpened their case. Some evidence, including testimony about a second possible suspect and an alternate explanation for Payer's scratches, was ruled inadmissible, narrowing the story the defense could tell. This time, the jury reached a verdict: guilty of murder. On August 4, 1988, Craig Payer, a former 13-year veteran of the California Highway Patrol, was sentenced to 25 years to life in prison. For Kara's family, the conviction didn't end the pain. It began a different kind of fight. Her father, Sam Knott, couldn't undo what happened to his daughter, but he refused to let her death mean nothing. Because police wouldn't take a missing person report the night Kara disappeared, her family had lost hours that might have mattered. Sam spent years pushing for change, and because of him, California eliminated the 48-hour waiting period that once forced families of missing adults to wait before filing a report. Those close to the case say Sam Knott never stopped grieving. He passed away years later, reportedly at the very overlook near where his daughter's body had been found. Craig Payer is still in prison today. He was asked years later to voluntarily provide a DNA sample for a program designed to help exonerate the wrongfully convicted. He refused, and refused to explain why. The parole board has denied his release multiple times, citing his lack of remorse. His next hearing isn't scheduled until 2027. A badge is supposed to mean safety. For Kara Knott, it meant a death sentence. Complaints were made, warnings were ignored, and it still wasn't enough to stop him before it was too late. Craig Payer has been denied parole multiple times. Do you think someone who abuses the power of a police badge to commit murder should ever be released? Tell me why in the comments.